This is Algebra 1, Lesson 27, Practice. We're going to do problems A through D in this video, and there will be a second video that will finish the practice problems. Okay, let's expand using the distributive property. We're going to multiply this factor on the outside times both of the terms on the inside. So first we'll do this times this. X times all that. Going to have an x there. Y squared times y squared would be y to the fourth because we're adding the 2 plus 2. And then times that p that was already there. So all of these variables ended up being multiplied by all of these variables. And we ended up with this x, y to the fourth, p. Okay, now we're going to bring down plus, and we're multiplying this factor on the outside times this last term, okay? And there's going to be a negative. And then we've got an x, and we've got a y squared, and then we've got a p. Now, since I put p on the last of that one, I'll put v on the last here. But alphabetically, I guess that should have come first. But the book does say you don't have to alphabetize. That's my own little hang-up, okay? Now, these terms do not have, here's a term, here's a term. They are not like terms, okay? The x's are sort of alike, right? Similar. And the p's, but since your y squared and your y to the fourth are not the same, then that means that whole term, each whole term, they are not like. So this term is unlike. These are unlike terms. So I cannot combine those, but I can simplify it a bit by getting rid of that plus sign. All right, here's B. They moved that factor on the outside to the right. Don't let that bother you. That's going to be multiplied here by this. So that's a 2 here. This x times this x is x squared. And this y times this y is y squared. Okay. Now I'm going to bring down a plus, and then I'm going to do this times this. So this 2 times this is essentially a -1 that you're not writing. That's going to be a -2. This x times this x is x squared, and then this y. All right, and again, we can simplify it a bit because we have adding a negative. Now, you may say, well, we do that every single time. What? Okay, soon they're going to throw it at you that there's a negative factor on the outside out here. If this is negative, that's going to complicate matters a little more. So they're trying to train you now so that you're ready for that. So, whoops, here's your final answer. For C, we've got this factor on the outside times each of these terms on the inside. So let's multiply this first. We're going to have that 3, and we're going to have an x, and then we've got a p cubed times a p to the 5th, which would be p to the 8th. And then we're going to multiply that term by this over here. Plus, and then we have a negative. 3x times x squared. Remember, there's a 1 here that they're not going to write. X times x squared would be x cubed. P cubed times p to the 8th would be p to the 11th. Okay, and we can simplify it a bit by getting rid of this plus sign and just leaving this written as a subtraction. And then for D, we've got the outside factor here times this first term. We're going to have a 2. We're going to have an x squared. M squared times m squared is m to the 4th. I'll leave it in the order they gave it. This whole term times, or this factor on the outside times this whole term, right? And I guess I could have said again plus, and this is going to be a negative, right? We're always adding whatever the result of this multiplication is. So this 2 times the -4 would be -8. And then I've got this x squared, and then this m squared times an m. Remember, there's a 1 here. That'd be m cubed. And there are no like terms. We can clean it up a little bit. And this is your final answer. So this looks just like a negative. We can move it over here, and that looks a little better.